with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the
I
flag
pledge allegiance
of the United
to the
States
flag
of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
which is
one nation,
one nation
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all.
Okay, we have the approval of the agenda. I don't know if Holly is with us yet. Do you see Holly? Not yet. Okay, I was going to suggest that the lobbyist Holly Kochi, is that how you say that? Be to A, but he's not here, then any suggestions, or is the agenda okay as it is? And do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
and I'll second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Okay, we have the consent agenda item for the approval of the regular meeting minutes of March 7th.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 7th.
Well,
Oh,
the only thing I wanted, I didn't say that the tree was not an immediate threat. I said it was an imminent threat, and because of some of the concerns of a couple people in the community, I just wanted to make sure that it was understood that it is a threat, but it's not an imminent threat. It says immediate threat. That's just not what it's academics, but we don't have to change it but I'd like it changed. That's what I'm trying to say. You're talking to March 7th meeting under public comment, the last paragraph.
Okay. Well,
Anyway, I'd like to second that motion to approve the minutes with that word from immediate to imminent threat.
okay,
That's all.
are you okay with that, Ted?
Yes, I am. That's fine.
Okay. Well, with that correction, all in favor of the March 7th meeting minutes with the correction of the change of the word, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Action items 5, A, B, C, and D. Would anybody like to read the amounts and what they are for?
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
Point of order for what?
You skipped the public comment.
You know, and I have that highlighted. I don't know what's wrong with me. It's every time. I'm so sorry. Well, let's forget.
Well, possibly somebody else should chair
I
the meeting.
also have a point of order.
Yes,
You approved the consent agenda item before you approved the agenda. What you did was approve the agenda, not the consent agenda item.
I
Well,
think
That's a
I think
good
that's
point.
where we're going back.
we went into the consent agenda item, which was the regular meeting minutes. However, we can go to with a correction because I'm going according to what our meeting agenda says.
Okay, I was going to ask during public comment that item, consent agenda item, be pulled for separate discussion because I wanted to change or suggest a change myself.
Okay, oh, I really apologize for skipping that. I even have it highlighted and I don't understand, but please, let's go to public comment and then we will revisit it.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, do you want us to use our little hands here in the bottom of the screen for public comment?
Well, that would be helpful, but go ahead, Brad. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, hi, good evening, Port. Okay, so a couple of things. One is I've been reading the director's report before the meetings. Looks like you guys are pursuing spending money for the water system. And I want the port to know again, others and I I object to the port spending any money towards the port's water system. Again, I've seen in writing that the port does not have consent to be entering into contracts to distribute water. And that's both from Washington Water and from Iraq Water Systems. And I don't have a problem with the port being in the water business if it gains consent. I've made that clear from the start. I would ask the port, and you can answer my question after my public comment, do you have consent? And if you do, let's see it. And then in addition to that, if you do gain consent, because the law is clear, it says the port shall not be in the business of engaging in contracts to deliver water unless it has consent. But if you do get consent, then the second hurdle, which is very important to adhere to, and that's where I have the biggest issue, is making sure that those costs for, the water system are solely borne by the ratepayers. Now that's very, very important. The port has no business being in the water business if there's other utilities, water utilities, willing to serve those connections. It's that simple. And if the port can gain consent from those other water utilities by law that it's required to get, then by law, it's allowed to be in the water business, as we've said before, but it has to spend the ratepayers' money, not the taxpayers' money. I want my money back. Other taxpayers want their money back. It is illegal, unfair, illegal for the Lakeland Village water ratepayers, for the Belfair water ratepayers, for all the private well payers, for anybody else in the taxing district of the port to be financing and subsidizing the ratepayers' connection fees and monthly usage fees. And that's why typically ports are not in the water business. Okay.
Did I lose sound
So-
or what happened?
Okay, Madam Chairwoman, I've just been interrupted by Director Larry Capola. Would you please start my 3-minute period over again, please?
No, I'm sorry, because we all heard it. We've all heard your comments. Go ahead, continue on. You have.
Okay, well, let me
20
finish
seconds.
he just disrupted me.
Oh, well,
I
that's okay.
apologize, Brad. All of a sudden my sound went out and I didn't know if I had sound or what. I apologize.
Okay, well, let me just finish my public comment, please.
Go ahead. You have,
Okay.
your time is up.
So if
but
the
you
port's
have a
gonna be
few
buying
seconds.
anybody's, if the port's gonna be buying anybody's water system, I object to that. Okay, and you know the reasons why. Okay, next, the port, well, let me just tell you how I think the port what should do real quickly in 20 seconds to get itself back on track. Number one, it needs to fire its counsel. Its counsel's got it deeply involved in litigation. I believe its counsel's guilty of malpractice. That's very important. I can help the port work through malpractice. That's number one. Number two, Larry Capola needs to resign or be fired immediately because Larry Capola has also conspired with counsel to get the port in this big mess it's got. Number three, Judy, Madam Chairwoman, you need to resign. You've been there 20 years. The port's in a mess. Now, outside the port, we get along fine. But as a public official, this is our port. This is the public's money. This is the public's business. And what I see happening is, and I've only been involved for about 15 months in this, but what I see happening is the port, there's a few key people that are running the port. They're using the port to benefit themselves and their personal friends. And that bothers me. I saw that in the port of Tahuya. It came out in the port of Tahuya. And in the end, we got people in there to run the port of Tahuya like it should be run in compliance with the law. They surveyed the public, which is what I'm going to recommend the port of Allyn do once it gets out of the business it's not supposed to be in and gets proper people in there to figure out if they want the port of Allyn to be involved in setting up an industrial park and doing what ports do, and rather than being in the park business. And the last thing is, you got to get out of that Sweetwater Park business. The port is spending almost $1 million a year now of taxpayer money. They're asking people with their tax dollars to subsidize the water ratepayers, and that's just totally illegal. That's my public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ken,
Do you have any
next.
questions for me, any commissioners?
I don't think so.
I
Thank
can't
you.
hear you. I can't hear you.
No,
It's because I didn't respond. That's why you couldn't hear me. And the answer is no.
No, I don't have.
Well, I
any
wasn't
questions.
referring to you. I was watching Judy's lips, but no sound was coming out. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ted.
I don't have any questions. I don't.
okay,
Okay.
next.
Hey, have a
Ken.
good evening, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good night.
Thank you,
Ken?
folks. Thank you, folks. This is Ken. I'm was a little disappointed that you jumped to the consent agenda, so I hope that you'll still take a discussion about that. But first, I'd like to remind the port there's an important hearing on the Belfair Sewer extension tomorrow evening. And once again, I think it's important that the port take a position and show their support for that extension. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the ecology blocks were moved, but I don't think it's to where you decided they were supposed to be moved back to that historic trail. It's far short of that. And next, I want to publicly request an executive session with your attorney and yourselves only regarding the no trespass order on the Schindelheim property that I received. I've walked that entire property and have discovered other potential liabilities to the port that are confidential, and I will only share them in executive session. And then when you do get to the consent agenda, I have a citizen request to remove an item for a separate discussion. Thank you.
Larry?
Leanne, could you let Holly in the meeting? I am not the host of the meeting. I had some technical difficulties. I handed it off to Leanne, and this is her first time doing it.
Okay.
But
Well-
Holly texted me and said, can I get in the meeting?
Okay, well, Commissioner, since I made the mistake of missing the public comment, I don't know why. I think it's not bold enough for me to see that. Everything else is bold, and I really apologize to the audience here. Even though we have done the approval of these minutes, Commissioners, would you like to revisit it?
I think that'd be fair, and I had eyes on the agenda also. I could have stepped up and said something, but I skipped over the public comment also. So I think if Mr. Van Busker and with the changes that Commissioner Sheridan says, I don't mind revisiting the minutes from March 7th.
Okay. Ken, would you like to make your comment?
He's muted.
I think
He's
that
trying-
he's muted
Were
himself.
you
Ken?
gonna take the comments now or move it to the regular agenda to consider?
Well, we are revisiting the regular
Okay.
meeting minutes, and
Okay.
unless you have other items that you wanted to discuss.
No, it's just those meeting minutes.
Okay,
There's a few unfortunate typos, but there's one item in particular that I'd like to have a separate discussion on. That's on page 2 of the commissioners in the report. It says, quote, that Dr. Brian Peterson said he knows how this cut happened, end quote. Do you see where it says that?
that was one thing I didn't copy, so let me,
It's under John's report.
It was right
Yeah.
after John's report, that's right.
It's the last line of John's report.
okay,
And we were discussing the tree. And Dr. Brian Peterson said he knows how this cut happened. End quote, because that's what it says. He also said that he would tell you folks offline what that was all about. And I think it's important that the public knows what it is that he knows and was willing to tell you offline.
Well, can I speak to that, Chairwoman?
yes, please.
Okay, yeah, so, Mr. Van Buskirk, he did not share with me how it happened. I didn't follow up to call him. And he did refer to something along those lines. I recall that, but, it's one of those things where it's there and we're dealing with it. How old it is and how it happened. If he wants to speak to that and call any of us directly, he certainly can, but he hasn't spoke to me about it and I haven't called him to ask him.
He has not spoke to me about it either.
Nor me.
Me neither.
Well, he made the comment that he knows how that happened. It was on port property, and I think you folks should investigate.
Well, he says I do remember how he said it. He didn't say it as a matter of fact. He says, I mean, he had a suspicion, whatever that means. He didn't use that word, but so I'm paraphrasing. But you know,
Okay, well, the
he would
minutes
take a
need to
guess.
accurate, the
So
minutes need
what-
to act.
Is there anything that you like that we do, Mr. Van Busker? Is there anything? Anything?
I beg your pardon?
Is there anything that we do that you like as far as a port? Because it seems like everything we do is really it gets blown out of proportion.
Sir, you're out of line.
No,
The minutes should
I'm actually asking you a legitimate question, and then and so you know, we
That's
are
not
taking.
part of the discussion, sir.
It is.
The
because
minutes need to accurately reflect what happened.
we are taking action on that property as we speak to do the things that we should do to it. And then if you want, what is it that he said that should be in there, or should it be changed, or you just want the investigation? I'm asking you that question right now, just so to figure out which direction we're going with this.
What do you want for the verbiage, Ken? What would you prefer? And we'll see if it's okay. You're muted, Ken.
Are you there, folks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like the minutes to reflect what the meeting, what was said in the meeting.
And what would
right.
that be? What would that be for you?
Well, it's whatever the people transcribed. I didn't go back and listen to it, but according to the minutes, it said that he knows how this cut happened.
Okay, so I'm going to make a suggestion based on that. Fair enough. That I want to take my motion back to approve these minutes if I can, or however I can do that, and then we'll go back and listen to that a transcription of that. We have it taped, don't we? Do we not, Chairwoman?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
and the thing of it is that, you know, we have two people that were working on it. I mean, it is transcribed and then it is edited because, and matter of fact, I just went to a public records, and actually
Okay.
the minutes don't even have to reflect everything verbatim. So I think it's getting to the point that we're just going to probably try to go for action items only, so we don't have to nitpick through these things.
I agree.
It's not really
Yes.
productive. And, you know, we can argue about all these things, but it's really important that we move forward, and we will take your considerations and your concerns, Ken, about the property. We are doing our best to make sure that it's going to be safe. As you will hear, we have hired an arborist, so we will keep you informed, but we need to move forward. I think it's getting to the point where it's not the end of the world if a few things are stated the way they are. Again, we've had two people going over the transcription.
Three.
Three. So it's not just one person.
Okay.
It's a lot of time. I would suggest that we accept the meeting minutes as they are. If you want to take it off the table, we can still do that, but we need to move forward.
I agree with you. I'd like to go ahead and just approve these minutes if we need to do that again with that one change that I asked for.
Ted, do you have a weigh in? What's your thoughts?
I agree, approve the minutes, but there is a way to go back, and I know Dedrick Allen and Mason County Web TV store our videos, and if the other board members feel, or the commissioners feel like we need to hold the meeting minutes from March 7th to the next meeting to approve, that's fine with me also, but I have no problem agreeing or approving the March 7th minutes. I don't, without Mr. Peterson being here, I don't know what he said. I didn't review the March 7th meeting. So, and we may, I don't remember him making that comment. So,
All right.
Okay, I'll have Leanne raise her
Yeah.
hand first.
I did review what Dr. Peterson said several times, and he did say he was going to clarify things, but he's contacted nobody other than one email, and that was it. That's already out there.
All
I
right.
think I've provided that to Ken already, so.
Well, I'm gonna make the same motion that, if there's no.
Wait, we have one other person, Sunshine would like to speak. John, I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I reviewed the video several times too, and Mr. Peterson did make the comment that he knew.
Okay.
But that's all as far as it went.
But that was all.
Yeah,
And he
okay,
did make a comment that he would reach out, but to the best of my knowledge, hasn't.
no. Okay,
Can I-
Commissioner
I-
Sheridan? Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead, Ken. Go ahead, Ken.
I'm fine with whatever you folks do, but maybe you'll consider a little more in depth having that executive session with me so we can launch an investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sheridan, would you like to speak?
Do we need to redo that motion just to clarify things? Yeah.
I don't think so. It's already been approved. I
Okay.
think we can move forward.
So that's okay. Let's do that. That sounds
Okay.
good.
We're still in public comment, however, I think, I mean,
Well, we went, it's because it kind of was covering Ken Van Buskirk. His public comment kind of pointed us back to that. So I guess
Okay.
you could ask if there's anybody else, I
I
think.
do- I do see a couple other people. Any other comments? Please raise your hand or. Okay, all right, then moving forward, we have the action items 5A, B, C, and D. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the A, B, and C. The general fund vouchers totaling $20,911.64, and the $23,223.36, and the vouchers totaling $21,673.25.
Okay, and also may we put in the approval of the use of digital signatures on all documents approved at this meeting? That's item action D, 5D.
Okay.
I'll
My motion-
second.
Okay, I'm sorry. My motion will include D, to approve the use of digital signatures on a document approved here.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Thank you. Commissioners' reports. Who'd like to go first?
If you don't mind, mine will be really quick. I attended the regular meeting and then I attended the PRTPO meeting. And there are some things for the PRTPO that I need to pass on for the next meeting. We have another meeting coming up. I believe it's April 17th, and I should have especially some of the things that came out of this year's legislative session with regards to State Route 3 and a couple other things, the Gorse construction. Hopefully that'll happen to ease some traffic there. So I'll put something together and send it out to the executive director, and he can probably just forward to everybody.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioner Sheridan?
So my Port of Allyn meeting, March 7th, and I attended my Mason Transit Authority board meeting on March 15th, and that's all I got.
Okay. I
Oh,
have my,
I did reach out to Mindy, I'm sorry, out to Salmon Center, as I had to have a brief conversation and ask her a question. But that's been my port business for the month.
excellent. Thank you. Mine's pretty brief too. I had, of course, the regular port meeting, the Oyster House meeting, EDC, and then I also attended the it was the EDC and the Chamber of Commerce hostings of the legislative meeting, which was March 17th at the Public Works. And it was really well attended. There was Drew McEwen and Dan Griffey and Tim Sheldon that were speaking. It was really great. It was really wonderful to see them and as you all know, Tim Sheldon is going to retire soon. So it was a very informative. There were some positives going on with the legislature, and they also said there were some things that they were hoping that would pass but didn't. Some of the budget in regard to that. However, one of the things was that there was a surplus, so there's money for grants and stuff like that. So that was a big positive. So that's it for me. Next would be security officers report.
All right. Let me get that up here. Hold on one second here. Okay. February 22nd, 9:40 p.m. The waterfront gate has been damaged or altered so it cannot be locked. The U-style clamps that hold the pivot point on the gate were spun as to not allow the gate to come together for locking purposes. Also, the large sign that tells everyone vehicles can be impounded after dark was lying on the ground flat, like someone had cut the ties, securing it to the fencing. Gate was promptly repaired in short order by dawn the next morning. That was from the February minutes, and he resubmitted them because there was something in them that he missed or something. I'm not exactly clear why, but anyway, March 5th, 2:18 p.m., received a call from Ken Van Buskirk informing me that a cedar tree on Sweetwater Creek property has a face cut with a wedge opposite to it, as if someone was intending on falling the tree yet never finished the job. He relayed that in his opinion, it was in danger of falling and had offered to fall the tree to remove the danger that it could fall randomly. I asked him to send me pictures, and he later did, as well as texted them to all the commissioners, the executive director, and myself in a MMS that would be up to in an MMS group that he had curated. I told Mr. Van Buskirk I would relay the information. It would be up to the executive director or the commissioners if any action was to be taken regarding his observations. March 13th, approximately 3 p.m., 3 a.m., attempted theft of the remaining electrical wire and conduit that leads to the end of the dock for the Marina power pedestals. Damage was done in the long run, making it necessary to have an electrical company come the following day to remove the wire. Don took it in for recycling after the removal. With the building around the power disconnects near completion, replacing the wire can be explored with measures taken to prevent future thieves from shutting off the power. March 29th, over the last few weeks, Jeff Walker's large sailboat has been anchored offshore and has gotten closer to the 100-foot buffer from the marina at the North Shore. This is one of 2 boats he owns anchored outside the marina area. His small tugboat has been anchored continuously for several years without being moved. Sailboat has spent some time away, but over the last 3 years, it has spent the better part of 2.5 years either moored at or anchored outside the North Shore facility. The executive director has been made aware of this as of this date. We agreed to have some official form of contact needs to be made about the distance needing to increase outside the buffer area. I have put several calls into him and have not gotten any response from him. So, and that's that report.
So your report, the executive director's report.
Okay.
Go ahead, Larry.
All right. Financial issues, revenues and expenses are performing as expected for this time of year. Beginning to book both weddings and moorage for the summer months. This month's budget versus actual report is included in your meeting packet. We do have ongoing expenses related to the booster pump and the new well, but these come out of the water fund, not the general fund. Litigation issue. At this point, the litigant has failed to submit any discovery request to us by the deadline and has not answered our discovery requests, which were submitted to his attorney some time ago. Our attorney is going to file for summary judgment and dismissal of the lawsuit later this month. Update to the comprehensive scheme. As per your decision last month, we have a public hearing scheduled for tonight and then approval of the updated plan. As noted previously, this isn't a requirement since our next official update isn't due until March 1st, 2024. We want to have an updated plan on file with RCO just to keep us eligible for grants, which could help fund future projects included in the plan update, but not included in the original plan we submitted in 2018. Water system issues. We continue moving forward on the new well and have received $400,000 in the state supplemental capital budget. Governor signed the budget on Thursday, so I sent a letter to the Mason County Commissioners reducing our SEDS request for this project from $500,000 to $100,000. As you know, there's federal funding available from the bailout money the state will receive, which will be dispersed by the county via the SEDS process. That should make up the difference between what we got from the state and being able to complete the project. We also have approval from the state for the booster pump. In your vouchers, there's some invoices for that system design, which is why the waterfront vouchers are higher than normal. We thought we had another water line break here at the park, but that turned out not to be the case. Troubleshooter from Evergreen Rural Water came out here twice with a leak detector and was unable to find any leak at all. He and Don went all over the park, but just couldn't find anything. Determination was just excessive groundwater with all the rain we've had. Don was going to install a drain behind the building where the water comes to the surface and tie it into the main drainage system. But now that the groundwater has receded, he wants to monitor it going forward for a while before doing anything. Damage claims. I turned the claim into Endurance for the storm damage to the finger pier and called Marine Floats, same company built the replacement dock, get an estimate on the repairs. Meanwhile, that section of the dock remains closed to boaters and pedestrians. Signed a contract with Marine Floats and they should begin work shortly. I let them know in no uncertain terms, we expect this to be complete for the opening day of boating season, which is May 7th. In the meantime, the diver who worked on our docks last year has asked for permission to submit a bid. I told him I'd look at it just in case we needed a possible backup. He was out there today and took a look at things, and I should be hearing something from him soon. The second claim for the theft of the wire powering the marina. We got a bid for the repairs from the same contractor that did the original installation, and Endurance has approved it and paid the claim directly to them. Then we had a second theft attempt. That's the one that was in Travis's report. While they didn't succeed in getting any wire, they did damage the conduit and cut the wire so it wasn't reusable and needs to be replaced completely. We turned this into Endurance as well, and again, they will pay the contractor directly. Our deductible for each occurrence is $1,000. I had Don salvage the wire that was left and sell it for scrap. We got $1,930 for it, so that covers most of the deductible for both incidents. However, before the repairs were finished, we secured access to the electrical equipment so it can't be turned off simply by cutting the lock. Otherwise, it would have just been a matter of time before this happens again. What we've done is completely enclosed the kiosk and installed steel doors with deadbolts to access the electrical equipment, as well as put stainless steel locks on the equipment cabinets inside. There's a stainless steel junction box out on the pier, but we're securing it with double deadbolts instead of just a padlock as well. Security camera issues. New cameras and equipment have been installed at the North Shore and are up and running. The vendor's working on the ones here in Allyn. He was here today, as a matter of fact, and installed one camera right by the front door. However, the two big multi-sensor units that were on back order due to the chip shortage will be installed. I can't even talk tonight. Sorry. Will be installed as soon as we receive them. We'll hope the entire system can be up and running by the end of next week. Redistricting. We have to come up with a plan for redistricting by November, and we'll need a consultant that works on this sort of thing to do the plan according to what the state demands. I don't expect we'll see a lot of changes since it's my understanding the district's population numbers were cut off at December 31st, 2021. Also, all the new construction in Belfair won't be complete and have people living there by the time we have to have the plan finalized. We can also do it sooner rather than later, so we aren't pushing the deadline. I should hope to have more on this to report next month. Website updates. We're still looking at other websites and seeking ideas on how we can update our site to make navigation easier as well as increase functionality. I did have our webmaster install a large button on the opening page for 2022 meeting documents. Hope this will make it easier for some people who seem to have difficulty navigating to those. The main issue is making the site easier to navigate and the ability to make and pay for reservations online, which we still need to coordinate with our credit card vendor. Old business, Oyster House. Nothing new to report on the building itself other than the new siding has been installed and looks great. There's still Tyvek covering the windows, keeping the moisture out of the interior until the windows have been restored and installed. The Army Corps permit is another matter. Started looking into the status of it and hoping to light a fire under someone, but couldn't find where it had actually been submitted. Bill Ray has been totally unresponsive, so I reached out to Art Anderson, the engineering firm that did the design, and asked them who they would recommend to help us look into the status of this. They recommended geoengineers and I contacted them. The guy I spoke with knows Bill Ray and tried to contact him, but he didn't respond to him either. I did forward him all the documentation we have, and he said the document that we sent looks like Section 106 consultation for the project, and that there is a core number that should be our core permit number. He didn't see the actual core permit itself or the Endangered Species Act consultation in the information we sent, so the Corps may be waiting for the National Marine Fisheries Service or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to complete their consultation for the project. He said the ESA process can take more than a year and they've been extremely slow in consulting on shoreline projects, but he is looking to see what he can dig up at the Corps. He also noted that our hydraulic permit approval for the project from Washington Fish and Wildlife has expired, so I asked him to get it renewed and to get a separate one for Hood Canal as well. They're in different fish and wildlife districts, so they require separate permits. Allison Cook was helping us with the Hood Canal permit, but she left Fish and Wildlife before it was finished. Also, there's a SEPA determination from the county. He didn't see the shoreline permit, so I've reached out to the county, see the status on that approval. He was hoping to get some more information about the Corps permit by Friday, but he said he's at the mercy of them calling back and said that's not always a high priority with them. But the bottom line is that once we have the permit, we can put the pile driving and construction of the platform of the building out to bid. I'm hoping to learn more this coming week. Wheatwater Park. Mindy Harlow and I met with Kathleen Barantas, the professional grant writer that the Salmon Center has hired to move this project forward. She has an exceptional track record with RCO and other granting agencies and has worked with the Salmon Center before and worked with me at the city. She's come up with a plan that'll use multiple grants to get this funded. Also, we have no expense for this. The Salmon Center is paying 100% of her fee. We moved the ecology blocks back as instructed. They're meant to keep people from accessing the property and abandoning vehicles there, which has been a past problem and has the potential to create a serious liability issue for the port. Meanwhile, there's now enough room for parents to wait there for the kids from school next door and for semi-trucks to park if need be. We've hired a local ISA TRAQ qualified arborist to mark the trees that need to either be removed and or trimmed, and that work started today. We have a tree removal firm that has worked for us previously on standby, waiting for the arborist to finish so he can get started. He has told me we will have his report by the end of this week. We also hired the same survey we used when we acquired the property and who surveyed our North Shore property to find and mark the corners for us so we know what property is ours to clean up. Once that's done, we'll move forward with the cleanup, so that work should commence shortly as well. The property will remain closed to the public until that work is finished. RCO has been made aware of the situation and what we're doing to deal with it and has agreed our actions are both appropriate and on the right track. At the March 7th meeting, we discussed setting up a public meeting work session to walk through the park with law enforcement, the fire department, as well as school district and others. I tried to arrange that, was unable to reach Commissioner Jackson to confirm the date and time, so it's been postponed. My questions are, 1, do you still want to do this? 2, will all 3 of you be there, which requires public notice? Or should I just set it up with the fire department, sheriff, North Mason School District, and other interested parties? 3, do you want to wait until the tree work and cleanup have been done, or do this beforehand? Cost of cleaning up the trash on the adjacent site will become an in-kind part of the match funding for any grants we receive for the project once we take ownership of that parcel. Kitsap All Ports meeting, next meeting set for April 25th. Criminalization of Marina rules, nothing to report yet, but once the new security cameras are up and running, Commissioner Jackson and myself will start trying to move this forward again. That's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Do you want to wait to respond to the work session to go look at the property? You want to wait?
Is it something for discussion right now as far as that goes, Chairwoman?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to.
Yeah, well, just real quick. I mean, I just put my 2 cents worth in. I do think it's an important time. There'll be a good time for us to do that, and it's appropriate for us to walk through the agencies he's mentioned. But I'd like to do it after we clean it up.
Okay.
But
Commissioner Jackson, do you have any comments? Oh, sorry.
I was on the same track as, I would say, after the arborist and the tree trimming is completed, that we set it up.
Okay,
there's a lot of garbage up there. Like the survey will determine what our responsibilities are to do the right thing. And after the cleanup is like Commissioner Jackson is suggesting as well, I think he's in agreement with me. After getting the trees and taken down that make it a safer area, as well as getting the garbage cleaned up, then it is my suggestion that we wait to do that walkthrough work session with those agencies at that point in time after that.
okay, sounds good. Does that answer your question, Larry?
Yeah, are all 3 of you going to want to go? Because we have to notice it if 2 of you are going to.
Yeah, well, I'd like to go. I mean, I've been on the property long ago, but I think it's time to look at it again. It's been a few years.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
I agree. I'd like to go also.
okay. Well, what we'll do then is once we get it cleaned up, I'll contact everybody all over again and get some dates and then get with you guys about it. You know, I expect it's going to be about a month from now. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, on to new business. On the agenda, it says discussion and decision on the contribution to the Salmon Recovery Task Force for its website. I thought that we had already agreed to put in $100. Did you ever find that in the minutes or anything, or?
No, I did not.
Okay.
We discussed it, but there was no decision made.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's go ahead and discuss it.
I know the idea is to have the Port of Grapeview and the Port of Allyn each put in $100 to run the website. My big concern is what port's going to be responsible for any public disclosure off of that website. Now, there's not going to be anything except the description of the project and updates. But then again, the website, my understanding, is going to be run by a person that's affiliated with the Port of Grapeview. And if we do have any public disclosure, does the Port of Allyn want the Port of Grapeview to administer that and distribute that public request?
I think it would be under their jurisdiction to do so. That's my opinion.
Yeah, the information's benign. It's just, like I said, it's just a description of the process and then any updates. So, or the project, excuse me, I said process. So
it's a great question he's asking, because that really, like, we need more of that, right? You know, so yeah.
Well, let me, if we can vote to agree upon it, let me talk to the other board members or committee members, and I think we need to have a written document agreed by the commissioners of both the Port of Grapeview and the Port of Allyn, since we are endorsing this project. To have, we could just say the website administrator will be responsible for all public disclosure requests.
Okay, I think that would be all right. Meaning that if they're just a volunteer, I don't know if it would be something that they'd have to do, but our public records official, Leanne, would probably know how to educate us in regard to that. But I think the more we have an agreement, I think it'd just be a good idea personally. So,
Okay, I could just see anybody requesting the emails I participate in with the committee, those would be, I use my port email address. Those would be open for public disclosure, and then they would have to be done by the Port of Allyn. But the website itself, I think if we just did an agreement that the Port of Grapeview would be responsible for the website, public records request, I think that'd be good.
yeah, that sounds really good to me.
Because we're just supporting it, really. I mean, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's what we're doing. We're just supporting it. We're not the creators of it, and we're not going to be maintaining it. We're
Correct.
just supporting it. So,
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Leanne, go ahead.
Yeah, I have an all-day training thing tomorrow to refresh everything, but yeah, as long as we don't, our public records are our public records. If we're not maintaining a website or something, we're not responsible for that. Commissioner Jackson was correct in saying that, anything he does with his port email is subject. So yeah, if Port of Grapeview wants to host it and do it, that's great. And we just want to contribute to it. Yeah.
All
so
right,
if they could,
perfect.
I like what Commissioner Jackson said. So if they can create a document, I believe that it was you, Commissioner Jackson. They can create a document. I'd like to make, if we haven't already, make a motion to support that with the donation, and then have them create a document as a caveat or a condition for that. Taking responsibility for the site totally. That's my motion.
Do you want to act on that? Or do I hear a second, or do you want to proceed with that, Ted?
I'll second it, and I will talk to, I don't think the Port of Grapeviews had their meeting yet, but I know this was one of the topics they had. So I'll second the motion, and I'll work with them to create an agreement between the two ports.
Okay. Is that pretty clear, everybody, what that motion was on the table?
Yes, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, so moved. Thank you. Okay, next is to set the date for the July Commission meeting, as it falls on July 4th. So what's your schedule like, everybody?
Well, I do it the old way.
My calendar is in front of me, so I'm gonna have to kind of wing it.
Well, I want to say that I will be out of town until the 6th.
Okay, what
Okay.
day does the 4th fall on this time?
Monday.
Monday.
Monday? Oh, well, of course. Well, what
Well-
about having Wednesday? Oh, let's see, you're still gonna be gone until the
Yeah,
7th.
I'm coming home Wednesday night
You
Let's
want
just-
to,
at 11 o'clock.
Let's move it to the 11th then, just a week later. How's
I
that?
can do the 11th. I have a prior commitment for that.
Okay. Well, how about the
Thursday.
12th?
Yeah, or the 7th or 8th.
how about the 7th?
Okay, the 7th.
Is that a Thursday?
Yeah.
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 Okay, that would be more appropriate for me.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay,
Is
usually is that the first Thursday? Because usually I go to the Department of Natural Resource Focus Group.
It is the first Thursday.
First Thursday.
Well, okay, I can skip that one. It'll be all right. Okay, so Thursday, the 7th would be fine for me.
Commissioner Jackson, and how does that sit with you?
That should work.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Public hearing on the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. So
You need to recess the meeting, call the public hearing to order.
yes, thank you. I guess the way that it's written, I always get a little taken aback here, but So I'm going to close the regular meeting and I'm going to open up the public hearing for the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. So I would like to take any comments from anybody. I see a hand. Jeff, and you're muted. You're still muted. You're still muted, Jeff. There we go.
I'm working at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Couple things. On forgetting that, I'm gonna comment just on the projects that are there. I haven't had time to really think about additional projects, but I've always been looking at the projects from a standpoint of economic development, or that kind of orientation. But on the new project like number 4, which is the acquisition of legacy water providers, I have no problem with that in the scheme, but the descriptions, I mean, we're kind of talking around the problem. It's kind of like, to me, it's like you kind of set objectives or goals or something in the comp plan. It's at least objectives. For example, in the Allyn UGA, at least in section 20 of the properties, there's like 9 or 10 Group B water systems within Allyn. And, I'm always a believer that if you're going to have a task or a project or a mission or something, you have to have some way of quantifying it, whether you're making progress against it or not. So I would say that as far as the project, no issue from that issue, but I think we could better describe what we're trying to do.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
The reason it's in there at all has to do with eminent domain.
Okay, yeah.
It has to be in our comprehensive plan if we ever want to eminent domain anything. And now, when you say eminent domain, it doesn't mean like we're going to come in there and swoop in and steal your water system from you.
Right.
A lot of times, if you use eminent domain, there's tax benefits. And we did that with the Ogren property. They ended up not having to pay a whole bunch of taxes because we did it for eminent domain. And that's why that's in there. But it's got to be in our comprehensive plan before we could use eminent domain, even if it was to benefit somebody else. And that's the only reason it's in there.
No, but I'm fine. I'm fine with it. Even if that wasn't a reason for it, I'm fine with it in there. What I'm really trying to say is I'd like to see us quantified a little bit, meaning, from the standpoint that, like I say, in the one section where the port is, where I am and others, is about 9 or 10, Group B water systems in there. And so, just at least look into, the acquisitions or whatever of the, Group B water systems within, the Allyn UGA or whatever definition you want to give to it. I'm just saying, to me, it seems like it needs to be just a little bit more quantified. I'm saying,
so
I'm fine.
what you're saying is you wanted to say something about we can only acquire systems in the Allyn UGA?
I wasn't even saying that because you could change boundaries and all those kind of things. But I guess what I'm saying is it's saying legacy water systems. And all I'm saying is to look, I don't want to beat the horse to death here, but all I'm really trying to say is there's, there's 9 or 10 water systems currently in Allyn UGA. All I'm saying is that, look into the acquisition of the 9 or 10 Group B water systems within the Allyn UGA or whatever definition. I'm just saying that, whether it's 9, 10, 12, whatever the area, I'm not married to that. I'm just saying when you read it, it's hard to tell what you're doing other than looking at old water systems. That's all.
Okay.
You can think about it.
To explain why that was in there at all. So
Yeah, no, I'm fine with the why. I don't have any issue on the why.
okay.
And I won't be a dead horse, but my thinking on number 5 on the EV. I'm still not convinced. I found a website that you can actually watch all the different charging stations, like in the county and in Kitsap County, so you can see how they're used. And I realize it's early days on electric vehicles, but there's a lot of idle time on these chargers. Okay. Okay.
Let me tell you this. My car of the week this week is an electric car.
Sure.
the Kia EV6. And on the way home, I had to charge it. So I stopped at a charging station at the Fred Meyer in Port Orchard and plugged it in. And in 20 minutes, it charged it completely up. So it doesn't take long when you use them.
Right.
But, you know, as more electric cars, you know, come about, you know, or purchased, there's going to be more use of these. Right now, electric cars are about 1% of all the cars on the road.
Right.
But, you know, our state has mandated that there will be no internal combustion engine cars sold by 2030.
Right.
So, you know, we're just trying to get ahead of the power curve here. And this could create a revenue stream for the port because I had to pay to charge this car on
No.
Friday.
No, I know. I'm just concerned about activities and economic development. And you know, to me, if you go back about 100 years and you look at what happened with gas stations, there might have been a point in time where the port needed to be a service station. But along the way, that dynamic totally changed.
And they were responsible for those tanks, you know.
Anyway, you got you know my issue there. And last but not least, number 6, Sweetwater Park. I don't have a problem with the project at all. What I have a concern is that it seems like when I read the RCW, which is RCW 53.08.260, I'm having trouble seeing how it fits and satisfies certain things for the port. I don't need to debate it here. I think just all I ask is the commission really seriously look at that and make sure that's really what you want in there, because it seems like it's pushing the envelope, it appears. And that's my comments.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ken.
Thank you, commissioners. And I would like to give my testimony without interruption. I don't want to dialogue with your executive director. I support the new.
Are you still there?
Yes, I am. I support the new project number 2 business park, especially if we locate it up on the plateau. That's part of the reason I think the port should take a position, excuse me, and show support for the sewer extension tomorrow evening. The new project number 4, acquisition of the existing legacy water providers. I'm not fine with why that's in there and how it got in there. You have planned to adopt a resolution later this evening approving this comp plan, and this is the first I've seen of this. How was this project decided and deliberated on? It wasn't in any prior public hearings, press releases, or the survey. So did you folks have a serial meeting? This is the first that this public's heard of that. So I think that should probably be pulled off of there until it's had an actual public comment period. New project number 6, Sweetwater. I don't think it's a good idea to do the acquisition portion of that grant, and I never have. I think that project should be removed from the comp plan until you meet with me in executive session. Your executive director has already met with the professional grant writer, and I think you should ask him to put a stop work on that. There's issues with water rights have been relinquished on that property. The archaeological designation as a hydroelectric facility is in grievous error. WSDOT is in process of culvert replacement and restoration of Sweetwater Creek in conjunction with the widening project. And I had a recent discussion with a Skokomish tribal member who agrees that the water wheel park is not a very great idea. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing for the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. Next would be, and we're going to open it back up, regular meeting for the presentation and report from our port lobbyist. Holly, is it Kochi?
Yes, correct.
You got it right. Okay, so welcome, Holly. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you all. I would like to share my screen. So if I could just have permission to do that, and then I will pull up my presentation.
Okay. Leanne has to do that.
I think she's on it.
Yeah, she's looking. And thank you for your patience, Holly.
I don't
No
see how to
worries.
do that.
Leanne, usually you can, so there's like a 3 little dots above my picture. And if
Yes.
you click on that,
Okay.
it should, you could either make me, does it give you an option to make me a co-host?
Yes.
So if you do that, if that's okay,
Yes.
I should be able to share my screen.
Okay, done.
Okay, perfect. The perks of being a millennial, you know, the technology. It's just the way it is. All right. So good evening, commissioners. You know my name. I'm Holly Kochi, state lobbyist for the port. Thanks for providing some time for me to speak today. I will just jump right in as we have quite a bit to cover. The purpose of this presentation is to share a bit more about what occurred during the 2022 legislative session, and then more specifically to share the outcome of the port's priority this session. We then have some time carved out to discuss 2 possible projects for you all to consider as potential opportunities for the upcoming 2023-25 legislative biennium. And lastly, I'll wrap up with just some next steps as we prepare for next session. So just to provide some context, the legislature operates on a 2-year cycle that aligns with the state's biennial budgets. This year was the second session of the 2021-23 biennium, meaning it was the short session out of the 2, lasting 60 days, beginning on January 10th and ending on time on March 10th. Another important element to the 2022 session is that the legislature adopted the redistricting maps that will take effect for the upcoming November elections, and what Larry mentioned to you all earlier. This doesn't mean anything too different for Allyn in general, but the 35th legislative delegation has shifted a bit. So the image you see on this slide shows the comparison of the new versus old district lines, with the light pink showing new residents and the checkered pattern showing the former residents that were within the district. And I'm happy to, Larry, I can send this to you so the commissioners can take a look if they'd like. For oh, sorry, is there a question?
I just said, okay.
Okay, cool. For a short session, the legislature focuses on adopting supplemental budgets by making amendments or adjustments to the previous budget that passed in 2021. In addition to passing the budgets, the legislature also considers bills that were carryover from the previous 2021 session, as well as bills that were introduced this year. So a total of 1,051 bills were introduced in 2022 and 303 bills were passed into law. So with that quick recap, I'll share a bit more about the budgets. There are 3 budgets the legislature focuses on, which are the operating, capital, and transportation budgets. So as I shared in the previous slide, the short session is dedicated to passing those supplemental budgets by making amendments to the biennial budget. So when the legislature comes back in 2023, they will start this 2-year cycle over again for the 23-25 biennial budget. So moving to the first budget, the operating budget funds all state agency operations. This is the one you most traditionally hear about in the media. Going into session, it was apparent based on recent forecasts that the operating budget was continuing to trend upwards, providing an additional 1.4 billion in state revenue that would need to be accounted for within the 2022 supplemental budget. Overall, the final 21-23 budget appropriates over 63 billion, in which 2 billion is shifted to the transportation budget, which I'll share a little bit more about in a bit, and 650 million to the capital budget. And the legislature left 812 million in reserves. I won't go over the numerous investments within the budget, but in addition to those shared on this slide that are a little bit more directed to local government specific investments, the budget primarily allocates new funding for K through 12 education, long-term care and developmental disability programs, behavioral health, paid family leave insurance, higher education, and housing. So moving on to the capital budget, this budget funds public and nonprofit construction projects, excluding transportation. This is the budget that the port often seeks funding within, and structurally it is funded by bonds that derive from a portion of the operating budget. So last session, the legislature kept about 81 million of bond authorization for this year's supplemental budget, which the legislature further adjusted, providing a total of 107 million in bond capacity for this year. So I'll just note that there were significant investments made in the 2022 capital budget. It was the largest budget in history, actually. So which the port directly benefited from by receiving the remaining funds needed to finish out the Oyster House project. So a very large 2021 capital budget. And for the supplemental budget, it's always going to be smaller and tougher to receive capital budget funding. The third budget is I will just add that in addition to that bond capacity, the budget includes funding from the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the federal ARPA funds, along with a few other sources. So that's totaling in 1.5 billion authorized within that supplemental budget. So the third budget is the transportation budget, which is by far the most financially challenged of the three budgets. The major components to this revenue shortfall just really derive from the decline in gas tax revenue collections and toll revenue collections. And to further add financial obligation to the budget, the state has been mandated by the Supreme Court order to replace all state-owned culverts. So there already has been a lot of motivation to create an investment package because the current revenue streams for the budgets are just not enough to make any further investments. So it was announced at the end of 2021 that Transportation Chair Steve Hobbs would be filling the role as Secretary of State, which placed Marco Leas as the new state Senate Transportation Committee Chair. And so Chair Fye, who had been the House Transportation Chair for a while now, and Chair Leas worked together to pass a transportation investment package this year, in addition to the supplemental budget. And the package is called Move Ahead Washington, which is a $17 billion investment over the next 16 years. So this investment comes from one-time operating budget support, a diversion from the Public Works Assistance Account, Climate Commitment Act dollars that they passed last session to generate revenue and increase carbon reduction efforts. And I just note that roughly 2/3 of that investment package revenue stems from the Carbon Commitment Act dollars, which is assigned to programs and projects that contribute to that carbon reduction effort. And then the remaining third of investments are dedicated to maintenance and preservation, various mega highway projects, addressing the state's culvert obligation, and backfilling some shortfalls that were identified in the Connecting Washington package. So a lot to unpack there. That's just the quick rundown of the budgets that passed this session. So for the port's capital budget request, the well and water pump facility project, the port's priority this session was ultimately prioritized due to two major reasons. And one being that the port had a mandate from DOE to drill and construct a new well and was given a time frame to do so. And two being that the current well is not equipped for the growth that is occurring within the Allyn community. So given that, we had to act quickly, and the timing worked out to prepare a capital budget request for this project for the 2022 session. The legislature also focused on prioritizing water infrastructure related projects. So this fit in well with where they were seeking to make investments. The port had also already done the first major step by funding the design for the new well and booster pump, which is always strengthens our requests when there is local dollars invested and the state is the last dollar in, so to speak. So we briefed the legislative delegation with Rep. Griffey taking the lead on the request. And given that it's a supplemental budget year, the amount in which you're requesting is particularly important. If it's too large, it can often dissuade consideration. So we had to be very thoughtful on the dollar amount and our approach around that. So we requested $400,000, which would cover a bulk of the project. And given the estimate a few months ago, obviously from the contractors, it was about $500,000. That is obviously a rough estimate and definitely can be subject to change, but that's kind of how we found that sweet spot of requesting $400,000. So the project request was submitted, and when the initial budgets came out, the House included the project, but the Senate did not. We reached out to the delegation again to reiterate the importance of the project and the timeline constrictions we were under, and the final budget included $400,000 for the project. So this is a great accomplishment, especially for this short session. And that is what I have for you in terms of the 2022 legislative session. As we move into a new biennium and a 2-year budget cycle, I wanted to highlight 2 projects for you to consider. So we are well prepared to make a possible request next biennium and also have the opportunity to also look into grant funding opportunities that could be worth applying to between now and next year. So the first being the idea around converting the Kayak Park to a veterans type themed park and converting the space with amenities that the community will utilize. I know this is an idea that has been discussed amongst you all, and really it's a blank canvas at this point. So definitely this can be up for discussion. There are grant opportunities for park improvements, and this is another request that could fall into the capital budget. If this is something that is of interest to pursue, it is always helpful to seek other sources of funding through grants or otherwise, and as well as establishing some local dollars, similar to how we handled the well project. Before making our request to the legislature to provide a direct investment from the capital budget, it's always great to show that we have some stake in the game. So just something to keep in mind as you guys consider this as a project option. And then these are just little examples. Larry had sent me the bottom image, and just to give you some inspiration if you'd like. And then the second idea is likely to be a bit more challenging in all aspects, such as planning, designing, identifying funding, etc. So this would not necessarily be a 1-year priority, but a request that we would dedicate the biennia to. For some time now, Rep. Griffey has shared the need for stormwater improvements within the area, which also branched into discussing the benefits of providing a walkable space for visitors to use to get from the port to Lakeland Village area and the local businesses. So I did some research to find out our options in terms of where this could be located, and was informed by the regional WashDOT contact that creating this along Highway 3 would be pretty tricky, as several of the businesses do not align with the state's right of way. This definitely happens often, but it is usually overlooked until it is made an issue, which we are not trying to do. However, the port owns the area along the red line that you see on the map on the slide. So this could be a possible option as a walking, biking path. So for this type of request, there would need to be further analysis done to really establish whether this would indeed be a possibility. With the new leadership and Move Ahead Washington package being adopted by the legislature, there is an emphasis in creating other modes of transportation and to get folks off the roads. Obviously, living in a rural community, there's only so many ways in which you can make that happen. But this access makes sense and could provide secondary benefits such as an increase in tourism and economic development if there are other ways to get from the port to local restaurants and such. So a project like this would be really appealing to legislators. Another element that became more apparent this year is that the legislature would like to fund projects that are construction ready or shovel ready, as they would say. So if this is something that the port would like to pursue, identifying other sources of funding so we can get the ball rolling on planning and design before making an actual transportation budget request, further increases our chance of state transportation budget investments. So I will leave those two for you all to mull over and discuss. It certainly doesn't have to be right now. And this doesn't write off other ideas that may have just not been shared yet. Larry and I communicate weekly, so we can certainly touch base when or if there's an interest, or if there's another project that that you all have an idea on, we can always further explore that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, so with that, I just wanted to say lobbying is a year-round effort. The accomplishments we've made thus far have required preparation and advocacy throughout the interim. We've seen that time and time again how effective it is to do that, and it is greatly appreciated to have you all engaged throughout the year. But just a few additional next steps as we move forward to prepare for the 2023 session. I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to thank the legislative delegation for their hard work as always. When we do have, a ribbon cutting or a ceremony for the opening of the Oyster House eventually, or when we finish up the well, inviting the delegation and honoring their dedication to the community is always a great way to extend our appreciation and highlight the projects that they have been a huge part of in making possible. Again, as part of our preparation, I've shared some possible projects to consider, and once we make some progress on identifying that, we can move on to the next steps to help elevate our priorities and prepare for the funding opportunities that could be pursued to make that happen. And then, like I said, the unique to this year, the redistricting maps will apply to the upcoming November elections. Just a side note, I will be sending out a comprehensive end of session report that will go over some of the policy items that may be of interest to you all, including some of the legislation the Ports Association worked on. And also I'll include a link to the redistricting map for the 35th LD in case you would like to take a closer look. So be on the lookout for that report. The governor just finished up bill signing, so I will hopefully get that out to you in the next week or so. The 2023 legislative session will begin on January 9th and will be the first year of the new biennium. We certainly have accomplished our major priority this session, so we can now pivot and work towards another goal. And with that, I will just say it's an absolute honor to advocate for the Port of Allyn. It's exciting to go through all of the accomplishments the port has made thus far and continues to tackle each year. So thank you for the opportunity to represent the port. It is really a privilege. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, or if you think of any at a later time, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You've done a lot for us, I'll tell you.
Thank you. I couldn't have done it without all of you, so I appreciate all of your participation.
Holly, I echo that. Thank you very much for your hard work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Holly. And I believe that, like, for economic development, that our priorities should be hinged around the funding that's available that will benefit the community as far as prioritizing what we do. I love that new word I learned, multimodal, walkable and bikeable. That's like you were saying, that's they like, I think you were saying the legislature likes those kinds of projects for funding.
Yes, and that's definitely a buzzword, at the legislature. So
Yeah.
you can always say, bike ped friendly too.
Yeah.
It's just, they always say multimodal.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Holly? Commissioners? Thank you,
Well, yeah.
Holly.
I do have one question for you, Holly, if you don't mind, Chairwoman. So what would be the path of least resistance with our projects? And, because you can only do so much at one time, right? So like what would, as far as the different plans that we want to pursue that's in our comprehensive plan, what do you see yourself like driving a little bit harder on one project versus another, or are you doing a whole bunch of it at the same time, Holly, for the port?
Well, I know you guys are discussing your comp plan after this. So I'll certainly listen into that. I'm not sure of, the details of each one.
Right.
But if you're talking about the two that I provided, is that kind of off that basis?
Yes.
I think that both will require time, obviously, but the transportation or, multimodal project is going to take time. It often takes quite a bit of time to lock down transportation budget funding. And I know, there's limited staff time to pursue grants. Grants are tough. They take a lot of time, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can for that as well, because that always in the long run helps us share with the legislature when we go to ask for funding. Hey, look,
I see.
We've applied to these grant programs. We've taken the initiative. We've gotten other sources of funding. We just need that last dollar in.
I see.
Yep. And both the park and that transportation project do have potential grant funding opportunities. So we're positioned to, and I guess we could do both. It would just be, obviously it would take time.
I appreciate you. You actually refined my question, because you got your role as a lobbyist, and then we got grant writers, but there needs to be a good communication with what it is we exactly are going to do, and what my priorities would be based on just the path of least resistance to get funding for these projects, as far as deciding where we're going to spend that money. Bikeable, walkable, I get it now regarding that. That's something I'm going to be looking at with everything we're doing. Kayak, I really like the Kayak Park idea of the memorial to include first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, etc. Anyway.
Well, thank you, Holly. Any other questions for Holly, commissioners? Well, thank you. And if you want to stick around some more, because next on the agenda is the discussion and decision on the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. So let's go ahead and go right into that. Do you have any comments, commissioners?
Well, I got one question for you, Chairwoman. So we're in this comprehensive that we want to talk about. We're not setting priorities in terms of the different projects that we were looking at, right? That's not
necessarily. No, there is one that I saw that we did, but that's because we do have the capital funds to get that done. But generally, no. And I might add too that with this harbor scheme of harbor improvements, that it is kind of a living document, so we can always revisit this in a year. So this isn't necessarily all locked in. We change them. So with that,
I understand that. Okay,
we can move forward.
That answers my question. Thank you very much.
Ed, do you have any comments in regard to the?
Well, just talking about the water systems, and I'm trying to go through some of my old emails and look, but we have talked in the past about acquiring water systems. I don't know if it's a formal discussion that we've had, but we have talked about it in the past. When we talked about acquiring Mr. Carey's water system, Uric system. So, but I was just going through emails or emails and prior meeting minutes to figure that out. So, and I haven't found it.
Okay. Well, I'm comfortable with what has been presented for the team of harbor improvements. That
Yeah,
is
so-
the technical name, by the way. We
Yeah,
have to
okay.
have that.
Okay, I am too, Chairwoman. I'm comfortable. It's for the most part, it's everything we've kind of talked about, and like you said, we can always change it up. But there's an old saying: if we don't have a plan, somebody else will make it for us. I like this one.
All right. Ted, do you have anything else?
No, I'll just make a motion that we approve the plan of harbor improvements.
Okay, there's a resolution 2022.
Oh, that's right.
007.
I even read that.
Do you have it in front of you? You want to read it?
Let me pull it up. If somebody has it in front of them, they go ahead and read it.
I have it in front of me. If you want me to read it, and then you can make a motion on it.
That'd be great.
Okay. Be it resolved by the Commissioners of the Port of Allyn as follows, whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Port of Allyn have met, and after at least one public hearing, other testimony from the public, and after reviewing results of an online survey, all written input from residents of the Port District, have considered the proposed updates to its comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners, after duly considering all relevant evidence and public testimony presented, hereby resolves to adopt the 2022 update of its comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements.
And I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022
007.
007.
I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Okay, next is a brief discussion on the new meeting regulations. Larry, you had given us something from MRSC.
Yes, did you all read it?
I did, yeah.
Actually, Leanne is a little more up on this than I am. I was going to let her comment on it.
Okay, Leanne?
Okay. It's all stuff we already do. It's just now mandated that we give public comment period for any meetings that we have any action items on, any final action. And we already do, we include public comment twice during every meeting. The other thing is we need to be giving a physical location when we have those. And that's, we always do when we notice meetings, we always say they're at the Port of Allyn admin building downstairs. So these are things we're already in practice of. So yeah, but they're mandated now.
Yeah, I just read up on all that too. So we could start going to personal meetings again now.
Yeah, but we need to be hybrid.
Yes.
So the best practice is to go ahead and still Zoom people in, and that just gives more people access to our meetings. Yeah, yeah.
Sunshine, I saw you raise your hand.
Oh, it was just about
Okay.
the hybrid that we
Yeah.
can, it's to our discretion. Whether we want to have a hybrid or public, or because we're within the certain allotted amount of people.
Yeah.
Well, it begs another question here, which is an interesting one. So like, when we're vacationing and things like that, I know I'm doing a little bit this summer, right? Just as an example, if I've got the option, like maybe we can put something in there that, that a commissioner is authorized up to 3 or 4 Zoom meetings, and the rest of the time, it's required to be in person. I don't know what that looks like, but what do you think, Chairwoman and Commissioner Jackson?
Well, you don't have to be authorized to, that's really up to yourself, as long as you attend. Before, I've attended just by the phone even as well.
Okay.
There is a stipulation that if you miss, and it's an old, I don't know if it's still in effect, I think it still is, but if you missed 3 or more, then I think you could be removed, but
That's actually my point, really, is I don't want to miss any meetings unless there's some emergency. But that being said, if I'm on vacation, if that option is nice now to be able to use Zoom. I'm certainly game for meeting in person. Don't misunderstand me, but the option is nice. Yeah.
yeah, no, you can do that remotely or by phone, because I've
Yeah.
I've done that.
Okay.
So that's not a problem.
All right.
So probably next month, we'll go to personal, to a in-person meeting and then a hybrid meeting. Is that what you're leaning towards, everybody?
Yeah, I would, just a couple questions. I agree with the hybrid meetings. Hopefully we're coming out of the pandemic, but now people that travel a long way with the price of gas, if they have that option just to Zoom in, I would like to keep that and make sure that we keep notice out that they have a Zoom link. And then if we were to have a hybrid meeting, do we need any additional equipment downstairs?
Not
No.
really. We have an extra computer and we
Okay.
can set it up and plug it into the big screen down there.
Okay,
Just face it towards the dais so everybody can see you all.
I wasn't sure if we needed to get a camera for the big screen down there or not.
No, we use the camera on the computer.
Okay, great.
We'll do a dry run beforehand though, and just to be sure.
Okay. Yeah, we could even use our own laptops and Zoom in, but then just be in person. That's another way to do it,
Yeah.
but we'll work on that. That's great. Okay, that's the end of the new business items. Next is public comment. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Who first? Okay, Brad?
Hey, guys, I'm back. Hey, I forgot to make some other public comments. I'm kind of glad I zoomed back in. I was listening to Holly's report. I've voiced it in writing to all the commissioners in an email that the executive director's report, Larry's executive director's report, was providing threats against both Ken and myself, or for anybody that matter that would speak out against the port, and lobbying their other public officials like the county or the state legislature. So Ken and I were very, very concerned that the port was using public money to try to find some sort of legal angle to threaten and prevent Ken and I from pursuing our state legislatures in this last legislative session. And so that's a big deal. And so I've asked the port to provide me with any arguments that would allow them to continue to keep that threat over us. And the port's been silent. I think it's a civil rights violation. My concern is that I would have liked the state legislators, Griffey and McEwen, as well as the rest of the state lawmakers, to know about the litigation that we filed against the port as it pertains to RCW 5308040 in section 4. And so my question to Holly or the lobbying group that the port is paying is, did they disclose to the state legislatures that the port is being litigated on these issues? Did they disclose to the state legislators of the cease and desist Washington Water June 23rd letter that made it specific that they did not have Washington Water's consent and that the port was in violation of the statute of RCW 5308040 section 4, as well as other state laws and interfering in their service area? Did they disclose those things? That's a big deal. So anyway, Ken and I still feel that we are being threatened against with state or with port money, public money, to where we can't go out and do our duty to communicate with our elected public officials and policymakers and disclose to them what the port's involved in here, for fear of public money, not Larry's private money, but public Port of Allyn money being used to frivolously litigate against us. Or if there's something we're not aware of that we're doing that could somehow hurt us. So we've been pretty much handicapped from informing our elected public officials of the reasons
3
for
minutes.
not
Your
providing
3
that grant
minutes is up.
funding. Okay,
Your 3
one last
minutes.
thing. One last thing. I strongly urge all three of you elected officials, as well as the port employees, to read House Bill 1329. That was the one that they introduced and put in place public comment requirements in public meetings. Ask yourself why that bill was put in place. I think it's pretty obvious that citizens of this state are saying that, hey, we want a voice in managing our elected public officials and the municipal organizations that we own. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I didn't see if it was Jeff or Ken that was first. Can somebody help me?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Go ahead, Jeff. You were talking.
Okay. One concern I have with the port, and is that I would like to see a few more things in the report, either in the executive report or from the commission, and that is, I get a little concerned when I'm having a discussion with the port about my water system. And I'm not saying that we have to get into the nitty gritty, but I don't want it to come across to people that I or the port are, communicating outside what would be the normal process. And, obviously I've had a few discussions with the port director, and I know, I understand that some of the material should be being provided to the commission, but I'm not hearing any discussion about it in the public meetings, and I'm not seeing anything in the executive or the commissioner's reports. And it concerns me a little bit that it gives the appearance that it doesn't give a good appearance. We'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Can I speak to that, Chairwoman?
Yes.
Okay, no, and that was, I really appreciate Jeff's comments. I really seriously do. And, and I understand that, negotiations are always on the table. But I at some point, I personally, being a commissioner, I'd really like to see something work out well for you and the journey you've had with the water, right? And that's all I can say about that. And I also appreciate the fact that you want to bring this up and have a discussion on it, because you're right. It's all should be totally a public issue. So I understand.
Yeah, I wanted to address that slightly too, Jeff, if that's okay. Well, Larry would have more, is that we are still in negotiations. And
Sure.
I guess that's where there is a point to where, when do you start sharing everything? I know that we are working with Northwest Water Systems, or they're putting on a well variance request right now. Some of this is still public record if anybody wants to dig for it, but out of respect for you, how far do we?
Well, I think you don't have to get obviously to numbers. I don't think you have to get to the nitty gritty. What I'm really trying to say is, just a summary statement that says, hey, we're talking about discussions, we're going down through points, that kind of thing. In other words, so the public doesn't feel like I'm going around the commission or the public in this process.
Yeah. So it's not like, well, gee, what just happened?
Right.
When it happens. So that's cool. So this is for the record. We are in negotiations with you. You're dealing directly with the executive director. And obviously however that ball ends up wherever that rug ends up lying, then we all have to make a decision and come together and say we're good with it or not, right?
Right.
But yeah, so for the record, we and I'm glad we are in the process of checking those boxes off and trying to figure out what negotiation looks like with you regarding the water. I don't know.
Thank you, Jeff. Anything else, Jeff, or?
No, just, I mean, I think you get the gist. I don't believe you need to go nitty gritty.
Right.
I don't think it does anybody, you know, it doesn't help the port, doesn't help me, doesn't help the public. But I think repeating myself, the public just needs to know that things are happening to some degree.
Mhm.
And that, we're looking at, and just big broad brush. I mean,
Yes.
1, 2, 3 sentences. I mean, you do a number of things like in your water report, like, what happens when you're looking for a leak. You elaborate a little bit, but you don't get in nitty gritty.
Right.
When you had the pump go out, you didn't get in the nitty gritty. You just said basically
Yeah.
the service went out, we're replacing the pump or, whatever, those kind of thing, that kind of thing. So thank
Well,
you.
it'll be in next month's meeting. We'll be approving the minutes and it'll be in there for starters anyway.
Right.
All
Well,
right.
you get my drift.
Yes.
Thank you.
Larry, did you want to address that or?
Yeah,
is
I
it
just
taken
wanted
care of?
to comment, just to say, Jeff, you and I have had a lot of friendly discussions about this, and
Sure.
I just wasn't real sure you wanted it to be public since we've been negotiating, and if there's
I
nothing-
mean, obviously not the nitty
if
gritty.
it doesn't bother you, I don't have any problem, bringing it out there. It was just a case of I wasn't sure, how comfortable you were with that.
Right. I'm I mean, obviously we're not discussing numbers and things like that, but I think I just think some of it has to be out on the table, no matter how comfortable or not I'm comfortable, whether or not I am or not, just
Okay.
so the public is aware that something's coming down the pike. That's all.
Well, we're trying to get it down there.
Right. I mean, I know you understand, but anyway, you get my drift.
Okay,
Thanks.
well, we weren't trying to hide anything. That's
No,
trying to
okay,
say, but just
okay,
more out of respect for you than it was anything else. So
okay. Oh, there you go.
All right, thank you. Ken, I think you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Wow. It seemed like there's a whole lot of CYA going on. And I don't think you duly considered all the public comments and survey materials before you approved the resolution this evening. I don't hold this against Mr. Jeff Carey. I hold it against you folks. There was no reason for you to put that project, just throw it out there as a new project for the comp meeting this evening. The public's never seen that new project before. Who placed it on the list? Was it Mr. Coppola? Did he do it by
Yes,
himself?
I did.
Well,
And I
it's-
did it on the advice of our attorney. And I explained that
That
earlier.
doesn't matter. It was never on any surveys.
It didn't
It
need
was
to.
never brought up before in any of the comprehensive plan meetings.
It
So,
didn't need
I
to.
think you folks should be put on notice. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Phil?
Yeah, yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, I mean, I just wanted to say that, I thought it was really sad what happened to the Port of Tahuya. I mean, government exists to help people. We form, we have a government to help ourselves, right? We don't have a government to continually rally against. So I just want to make that comment. And as far as water systems, again, not everybody has their own private well. Okay. It's better that people are on water systems. And so how do you manage water systems? Is it 4 or 5 people get together and decide to drill a well and do that? Or is it, you know what I'm saying? And there's not PUDs everywhere to provide this service. So yes, I think government should be involved in purveying water. And if private entities want to do it too, I like what Jeff does. I mean, that's great as well. But not everybody can pull off their own water system. You know, and as far as whether or not to support the extension of Belfair, sewer system, the hearing is tomorrow. I believe there is more information to bear. If decision is made to expand the system, it could likely cost the ratepayers, I mean, a Belfair and even the Allyn system. Our Allyn system rates have gone up by about $35 over the last, over the last couple of years. And so I think the careful consideration needs to be made there. So, yeah, that's all thank you, for trying to run effective meetings. Again, it's important that we have these government institutions and we do the best to support them. So, so thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
And if I could just add too, I support the Sweetwater Creek project. So, okay, thanks.
God bless you.
Thank
Anyway, yeah. So, I might be going to, I'm going to try to go to that Belfair meeting for the sewer. I definitely, I've been reading about it, and it's time for me to hear it firsthand. So, at the same time, if we're open for discussion on that note from Phil Wolf, that's one of the areas of my concern is getting behind progress can hurt people in their pocket, because now they're a captive audience. And so even though it's got a good side to it, it also has a bad side. Is the community ready for that? We have a lot of senior citizens in the community up there and around the area that live on a fixed income for the most part anyway. So I have concerns, and I'm not ready to make a decision on it anytime real quick. I know that it just comes around once in a while, but I got to look at it before I make a decision personally.
Okay. Anybody else? I think that's about it for the public that I see. So anything for the good of the order?
Oh, yes. Good of the order. Is it the spring meeting on the 4th of May? Is everybody going to that for the commissioners? And is all that? Okay.
Yeah, I was planning on going.
What
And
can someone fill me in on what that's going to entail? Being a new guy in the block.
They usually Washington Public Ports Association keeps you really busy, at least 12 hours for the day. I mean, there's lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner, that's the fun part, but there's always updates on many other issues. I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I would suggest that you get on the Washington Public Ports Association website, go to events, and then go to the spring meeting agenda.
I'll do that.
And that will explain all of that.
All right.
And anybody can do that. Anybody in question on this Zoom meeting, take a look at it. And that's what we do.
I can forward that too. I can forward you the link if you need, John.
That would be, I saw an email regarding that, but yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Yes, Brad.
Yeah, for the good of the order, I support parks.
Oh,
You're muted.
You got muted, Brad. You're still muted. Okay, now we can hear you.
Okay, I support parks, but I support park districts performing parks. I support water, but I support water utilities doing water. And with regard to Mr. Phil Wolf's comments for the better of the order, good of the order of the people, the folks in Tahuya, I think by and large, understood that things are born, things live, and things die. And for the most part, I would think it's probably a pretty happy place out here in Tahuya without the Port of Tahuya. There's a lot of taxation. I think everybody would agree we have a lot of taxation. I support essential government, but I don't support frivolous government. So for the good of the order of the people, it's been a good deal for the Port of Tahuya to be dissolved. That's a good thing. It's made room for more money in people's pocketbooks to be spent the way they want it spent. Thank you.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second,
I'll second that motion.
all in favor? Thank you very much, folks, for attending. See you
Good night.
next month. If
All
not
right, good night. Thanks.